Okay, so good afternoon to Edy Forey, and obviously I can tell from the screen who's who, but you could each just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners. So,
Shall I go first?
Yeah,
go on.
Ladies first. Hi, so I'm Edy. So I'm Edy Forey, that's my real name, but I'm Edy for the British audience, and I am the singer and the producer of our music and the lyricist. So that's my main thing.
cool.
And so my name is Forey, and I'm the pianist, the composer of the project. So together we just do Edy Forey.
Right. So obviously you're not Scottish.
No.
So
Almost.
Where are you from, both of you?
So originally I was born in Poland. I came here 11, 12 years ago. So I'm almost Scottish, getting there.
Oh, well, if you've come to live here, you're Scottish. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just...
Yeah. Praise God.
Yeah. I come from France, and I moved to Edinburgh 5 years ago. And basically getting settled here, being ready to spend the rest of my life in that beautiful country, really. So,
well, there's a lot to look forward to. Trust me, I say I've lived here all my life. I've actually lived in other places as well. So,
whereabouts?
You name it, I probably lived there.
Poland?
No, I've been to Poland, but I've not lived in Poland.
I recommend. Yeah, it's nice.
I was for many years. I played in a Cayley band.
Oh wow!
We toured.
That's amazing.
Toured all over the world, basically.
Oh wow, nice! What did you play? Were you the guitarist or?
I was a very bad guitarist. And I still am to this day. But I used to play the bowran, which is a round circular drum.
Wow.
I'm self-taught on, so.
Okay, that's amazing.
Well, I'm okay with the guitar as long as there are other people making noise round about me, and then people make a mess of things, you know.
Love it. Yeah, no, that's incredible. It's very Scottish.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I was also a vocalist as well, so.
Oh wow!
For the Cayley band as well.
Yeah, but I wasn't the main vocalist on the Cayley band. It was someone else who was the main vocalist. But I did a lot of stuff over the years as well. So, Anywho, enough about me. Let's talking about Edy Forey. So how did you two guys kind of meet?
So, if I may answer, unless you want to go for it.
No, I think that's your question. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I mean, I had a band at the time. It was in 2017. I had a 6-piece band in Edinburgh, and we were trying to do some. I mean, I was keen on doing original music, but the guys kind of wanted to settle for covers and stuff. It was a great band. We had, just nice repertoire, kind of like Black American inspired music. But unfortunately, as I said, they were not so keen on originals. And I was also producing my own stuff. So when Forey was introduced to me, I just thought he was a brilliant pianist. And my band eventually disbanded, but we kept in touch, and we just knew that we were kind of going to do something together, because he saw something in me artistically that was worth for his time, and I saw in him that he was just a very creative composer and just an amazing pianist. So we just decided to keep in touch and see what we can do together.
Cool. So when you sent the track, your recent release there to me, I think I'm right in saying that it was described as a sort of jazz style. But if I'm being honest, if it is jazz, it's quite a light jazz. I don't know if you felt like that yourself, or if you were aiming for that.
Yeah, it's definitely. There's very little jazz in that song, to be honest. It's probably one of the least jazz songs of the album. It's you probably felt that it's much more in the realm of hip hop than jazz, indeed. But I think the funny thing with jazz is that when you spend a good chunk of your time listening to it and playing it, it just somehow it just gets into the music you make, even if you make another music, you know. So the beat is not jazz, the structure is not jazz, the length of the solo isn't jazz, but for example, the chords kind of are. The approach to soloing kind of is as well. So it's a funny blend indeed. I'm not even sure how to describe it.
Well, I don't know if you heard it when I played it yesterday on the show, but prior to that track, I played a track by a Paisley-based Scottish jazz singer, brought out last year, called My Scottish Heart, which does have quite a jazzy swing to it. But I felt personally that it actually was a nice compliment to the song that was played before it. And to be honest, I wasn't really expecting many of the listeners who contact me through the show to maybe pick up on it, but 2 or 3 of them did, and they commented, that there was a really nice sort of compliment between the 2 tracks. So I was quite pleased that I had got it right, and other people realised it as well. Do you find either yourselves or other people kind of comparing your style to maybe other jazz artists?
If I may jump in, because actually the interesting part is we tried to get some of our other songs that are much more jazz out there, but it's really hard to find a PR company that is willing to pick up an unknown jazz act. So what we did is we went with a mainstream PR company that helped us get the track, included in various Spotify playlists and things like that, things that we don't have any clue about. And that's why we decided to go with this song, because it's quite light, as you said. It's not jazz, it's a blend. It's a weird kind of, we call it urban jazz, because I think this works with our music. It's a lot of jazz, but it's definitely not plain jazz at all. It's jazz is underlying it, because Mr. Forey is very jazz, but generally speaking, it's a blend. So that's just to add to that. And when it comes to being compared to other people, I hear that we're not easily comparable so far. We've not got a lot of comparison. We worked with Bob Power, and he thinks that we are making a very we have an original sound. And if it comes from Bob Power, we can take it seriously, because he's worked with so many different people. So I hope it's not easily comparable. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, certainly, as I said, when I listened to it, I didn't really think it was particularly jazzy, although possibly I like style of jazz. But jazz is quite a subjective term for music, I always find, because you've got people who will swear by traditional jazz. So I'm talking like the jazz from way back in the last century. And then you'll have people who talk about modern jazz from the later part of the 20th century. And to be honest, I think they're pretty much the same thing, but just with the modern twist being people doing their own thing and taking their own slant on the music. And I kind of get the idea that might be the way that you guys are going. Would that be right? Either or, don't care.
Sorry, do you want to pick up?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There are different schools in jazz for sure. And some people get actually quite triggered sometimes saying a modern sound is jazz. And I understand it, because jazz per se, when we think about jazz, and the highlight of the jazz era really was, made of acoustic sound, piano, drums, trumpet, horns, all that stuff, and that's really the highlight of what jazz means. But then over the years, jazz also became more of a cultural approach of music. And so as an artist, as a jazz artist, are supposed to know the foundations of jazz very well. But then, as I said earlier, this will come about in any new creation they make, and so I think you're right saying that we'll see how it comes across, and if we're seeing that way or not. I think to be honest, we'll know very much once the album is actually released, because the album is quite eclectic, and the genres just navigates from left to right and center, and so once people will have the full vibe of Edy Forey, then I'm quite curious to see how people will label the music.
So on that, when do you expect then that the album will be released?
Later this year, I'd say about September. And we are being quite conservative. We wanted to release it on the 28th of February, but that didn't work out. It always takes a little longer time than we expect. So we say September, around September, just got quite, I would say about 50% work to do on it, maybe a bit less, but it's also the funding and stuff like that. We self-funding it, and it's taken a little time. So September, I'd say.
Well, do you know what? It's interesting you said that about the funding, because that seems to be the way that you know, young musicians are going now, you know, either through, you know, trying to raise it through a crowdfund or, you know, little side projects to help raise funds. So did you try to get like sort of some sort of mainstream funding, or did you just go straight for, you know, doing it all on your own?
Funny question. If I'm honest, we've tried 5 times and we got declined. So it's interesting. I feel like maybe the subject matter and the music, our music is very, it's a bit countercultural. So I think a lot of the places that award funding are going with particular political themes, and we are avoiding these themes. We don't feel like we need to say what other people are saying already. So it's called Culture Today, the album, because it's about vanity and culture. We are trying to go anti, you know, the selfie kind of mentality and things. And I don't think the funding bodies are quite convinced that that's a safe message to put across, or that this is worth their money. You know, maybe they're concerned that this is not going to sit so comfortably with the way culture is right now. But on the other hand, this is exactly why we're making that album, because we don't want it to be a mainstream approved piece, you know. So that's why we've tried. They declined us, so we're just trying to make our own money and, you know, keep them going.
Yeah, I must admit, I get very frustrated by funding bodies who, in my opinion, should be clever enough to look across the full spectrum of whatever it is that's being submitted to them and choose what, you know, are going to be the ones that are most appealing, not necessarily the ones that are going to be the most commercially successful. But unfortunately, most of the funding bodies tend not to do that. They tend to fall back on the tried and tested. So if they've funded a particular area before doing certain things, that's the way that they're going to go. And I've always thought that if I was lucky enough to be in that kind of position, I would be much more inclined to go for something that was a little bit off the wall.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, to be honest. Exactly. Yeah.
So, do you, or have you, I know everybody's been locked down for a while, but have you done any sort of recent gigs, or have you got any gigs kind of lined up in the near future?
Yeah, so we've been focusing for the last 2 years really on the composition of the album, and only just recently we started thinking about its performance. And so we will definitely put a band together that we don't have yet, although we have some very good musicians contact that played on the album and ready to get on board. So we're just gonna start doing some with some open mics first, just to spread the awareness of the brand a little bit. In Edinburgh, especially in Scotland, playing just the 2 of us, maybe with some backing tracks to give a flavor of the music, and to just make people interested and to look more into it, and just find us on Spotify or something. And then once the album is released or close to be released, we already are aiming at putting a great band together and really making the best show possible, and doing it in Scotland and the whole of the UK as well, and God knows where else.
Good stuff. Well, do you know what? And I say this to a lot of people that send me stuff and I chat to them. If you send it to me, I'll play it, because in all honesty, I absolutely love that track.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much.
Right from when I first played it, you know, and it started to play, I just thought to myself, wow, because it is quite different from a lot of the other things that I do. You know, and my show does tend to be quite heavily rock orientated.
Cute, love it.
That's just purely because, you know, when I first started out, you know, it was very much a rock way that I was doing things. I just fell into the Ceilidh band, if I'm being absolutely honest about it. So it does quite heavily go that way. I also do another show, which is a country music show, which again I fell into.
Life, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny. It takes you places.
I had no intention of presenting a country music show, but that's just how it worked out. And I'm learning on the job, as they say.
Sure.
So do you, I mean, what sort of experience or qualifications that you both have? Are you both sort of qualified musically, you know, having, you know, studied at college or university, or is it just natural raw talent? Or a combination?
So yeah, so that's where we both differ already, and that's where I think there's a lot of value to be found, because Edy hasn't been classically trained in music, but always really much inclined into creating it. And I've been trained the classical way. Started classical piano as a kid, did some competition, then fell in love with jazz at 11 years old, and went full blown jazz for years, and then we met, and as much as it was surprising for Edy to work with me, who was trained, it was actually very much surprising for me, and very added so much value to work with her, because she built such a musical instinct, you know, a musicianship that was free of any kind of conformity, and that really provoked some very interesting ideas. And I think that's where those two extremes meet, and I'm really happy of the outcomes.
Yeah, it certainly comes across in the in that track I found. Again, I think if you're not sort of musical, you know, you've not played, you know, music or anything like that, you might not necessarily pick up on those slight nuances. But that was the whole point of me asking the question, because I got the impression that either one or possibly both of you hadn't had any kind of classical training, although I did.
Oh, wow. That's so funny. I love it. I mean, yeah, I went to art school, but I actually did animation.
Oh.
Other than that, prior to getting into music, I was known as a visual artist mostly. So, but I've always loved music, and music spoke to me so much, you know, and I was obsessed with music. I thought when I was studying, I first picked up producing music when I was in college. But it was literally, I just got given a computer with a whole bunch of loops on it, and you know, and somebody said, "Knock yourself out," you know. So I started putting things together. But as Forey said, and he explained it so well, he did appreciate that kind of free instinct and lack of conventional training. It is an asset, and I think, I mean, I hope this is good music, you know, because I've listened to so much music, and I think I can recognize where things are original and they are well put together, well executed, without actually having to be any particular way. You know, it's not like we're pursuing a genre, as we said, is it jazz, is it not jazz? You know, the reason it's not jazz is because, probably because of me, to be honest, because I'm the guy, I grew up on hip hop, and I loved R&B, you know, like En Vogue. That was my thing when I was growing up. I loved some TLC when I was very young, and now I love Donny Hathaway and all these kind of Black American artists, and many of them aren't trained either. So yeah, that's where this influence comes from.
Yeah, well, it really is a great fusion, you know, of the sort of, if you like, well-trained person.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much. It's great to hear that.
So it's interesting you said, you know, that you did the sort of visual artistry and stuff like that. So if you're going to make a video for any of your music going forward, is that going to be your bag, Edy?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we have a little video that I sort of directed, which is the Nature Boy. I don't know if you had a kind of look on our, yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine, because it's an old version of our Nature Boy thing. I do if you happen to be on our Instagram, a lot of the stuff that's visually kind of catchy on Instagram is probably my influence. But yeah, and we're not sure about music videos as such, actually, because the problem with them is that they tend to be very, I mean, don't get me wrong, video is a beautiful medium, but I feel like if I'm a singer and if I'm a female, then there will be an emphasis on me looking good and things like that. We find it a bit cheesy, you know what I mean? So it's just, we'll see where it goes.
Unfortunately, that's really how the sort of business and the world at large kind of looks at things. The reason I was asking is I've played in fact, I played them on the show yesterday, an Italian duo called Mlau, who have some really interesting videos that they put together for, you know, their songs. And when you kind of think that it's going to be a straightforward, you know, them on stage performing, that's just not what you get, you know. Some of it is animation and some of it's a mixture of both, you know. And that's why I was kind of asking you, you know, maybe that would be something that you would be looking to do.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Actually, I think if we were doing some videos and things, we would try not to focus them on us so much, so it's not so self-indulgent, but just more like a stylistic elements of animation and some kind of maybe video footage of some other things. Because yeah, this whole entertainment world is so saturated with self-obsession. We try to avoid it if possible. We'll see, because I think there will be influences. I'm sure if we get picked up by labels and things, they will have their way of doing things that are commercially acceptable, or there's formats to follow. But we'll see how we do. I don't want to rule it out and say we're never going to make a video, or we're never going to make a video of our face, in it or something. But we try, and for now, we try to consciously avoid doing it.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult decision, I think, for young artists to make when they're starting out. Do they stick to their guns artistically, or do they allow them to be kind of browbeat by the man, if you like, from the record company?
Sure.
I've dealt with a lot of young musicians. I used to run an agency many years ago as well, where I, booked out bands and stuff like that. And I used to always advise young people going into the business to stick to their guns wherever possible. Take a little bit, but, don't allow somebody to come along and say, well, do you know what, you're this, and that's what you're going to be, because that's not what they were to begin with, And
for sure.
I just wondered if you had come across anything like that, either as a duo there together or individually. Had anybody kind of tried to influence you that way?
I think so far we've been pretty blessed with that, and it seems that the circumstances of the music making so far has really been directing us in a unique path, and always allowing us to really be ourselves. And the way we make the music, the only thing we're looking for is to make music that we think is good, and knows the good with a big G. And that's it. And we're not thinking, oh, this or that will please the audience, this will work in the market. No, we're already separated from that mindset, and that's the bet we are making here.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been anybody particularly yet. I mean, we are still very unknown. We're just kind of coming out of our creative cave. We've been working very hard, but the fruits of our labor are still behind the scenes, So not yet. There might be influences that will come along and say particular things. I expect for people to put us a little bit on the chopping board for not being exactly jazz, but then, not being hip hop or anything other than jazz either. So that will be a bit of a problem. But I do hope that, we put in that label urban jazz on it. And I hope that will stick, because urban jazz implies that we are urban music, but the jazz is jazz influenced, and we'll see if that flies. We'll see. Everything's still kind of coming together, and we see how we get on. But being on your show is very lovely, because we get to chat with somebody who's just heard the track, and we get some external feedback. So for us, it's also very new,
Good.
That's true.
I must admit, I was really interested there by the expression you used, a creative cave, coming out of a creative cave. I love that. That is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we've been in a cave, yeah, for sure.
But then I suppose we've all been in a cave. To what extent we may have been creative during that period is an entirely different kettle of fish, of course.
Right.
I mean, I've learned a lot in this lockdown, like doing these interviews over Zoom and stuff like that, because prior to everything getting locked down, we had a physical studio, and I would have likes of yourselves to come into the physical studio, and if you were able to bring along, instruments that were pretty portable, we'd do like a little unplugged session, within the studio and stuff like that.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
So
That'd be amazing.
I'm working on. I've not quite perfected it yet, but I'm working on a way of kind of doing that over Zoom.
Oh wow! Yeah.
The problem is that in this situation, because you're both in separate locations, it can be quite difficult to tie your sounds together.
Yeah.
Time lag.
Well, if you wanted us to get together, there's no problem, because we hang out together so much, so that wouldn't be a problem. But I hope you're gonna have your studio back. Do you miss it? Because I think it's so nice to have people physically there.
I do. I know most of the other presenters are quite happy doing it from home, and to be honest, I quite like doing it from home as well now. But I love going into the actual studio. You know, it's like your day job. You know, you get up in the morning, you go to the studio, you sort things out, you do the show, you know, come at the end, you know, that kind of stuff. But a lot of other people that are doing the shows, they really enjoy doing them remotely. But I miss that sort of contact, if you like, face-to-face contact.
Sure.
In the studio. At the moment, I don't know about us getting another studio space. I would like us to, from my own personal perspective, but we'll just have to play it by ear and see.
Sure.
And I'll just do my best to perfect, you know, having
Zoom.
doing it over Zoom.
You're doing great. Yeah.
I've done some tests with a couple of people, a duo similar to you two at the moment, and they were in separate locations, and it was okay, but it was a lot of complicated stuff for me to edit it. I don't want to be doing, you know, if I'm going to edit something, it'll be relatively simple. Another one that I did was an individual, and that worked really well. You know, and again, it would have been just like being in the studio. They were just there with the acoustic guitar and, you know, playing that and singing away, you know, so it worked quite well. But I'm always working away in the background to try and do things, and I'm always trying to think of ideas, you know, and things to do.
Love it. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, to be honest, I found you on Google, so so I've not heard about the radio prior, and this is not to be taken personally. The fact is, myself and Forey, we are kind of really in a creative cave. That's where we live, and that's where we breathe, and we don't even have a telly, to be honest. So I don't know. We're missing out on a lot of stuff.
But, you know, to be perfectly honest with you, we're not, you know, like massive in terms of audience. What I have discovered is that when we have shows where we have presenters doing the shows, whether that's, you know, they pre-record it and upload it for it to be played at a later date, our listening figures go up. You know,
nice.
Really, when we play for long periods, when we play what we call music mix shows, the listening figures tend to dip, which I can understand. You know, but then in saying that, when I'm working away at home, I've always got music, either my own personal collection of music playing in the background, or I listen to indie live radio playing away in the background, you know, while I'm doing
That's
my...
amazing. Yeah. We should probably get down to listening to indie live, because it will be a lot of acts from around Scotland. Is that right?
All over the world. Certainly on my show, I get contacted and get stuff sent to me from literally the four corners of the world.
Love it.
And the country show is really starting to take off now, and there's like a couple of management companies who are now sending me, in fact it's 3 or 4 now actually, who send me stuff from people that they're representing to see if I can play it. And I'll be perfectly honest, there's a lot of stuff gets sent to me that is not going to make it on air, but I do keep in touch with people, and, you know, I'll tell them if I'm not going to play it and why I'm not going to play it. I get stuff sent to me by hip-hop artists that there's just far too much swearing. And while I understand that it might be integral to the song, a lot of people would get put off with it. So, you know, you can't kind of do that. But I try, and wherever possible, I try to play it, but I always kind of do it in the last hour of the show.
Sure, I mean, you got to find ways, you know, that's being creative. Cool.
So listen, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with me. We're just about to run out of time.
Thank you for inviting us, really. And yeah, all the best for your radio, because I hope it's going to just grow and grow.
Yeah, well, listen.
Yeah, hopefully you go back to the studio.
Yeah, just keep sending me stuff. You know, whenever you think you've got something that's worth listening to, send it to me and I'll have a wee listen. And as I say, if I'm liking it, I'm going to play it, because that's what I do. If I enjoy it, I play it, and I don't care what anybody else says.
That's amazing. No, I love
Thank
that.
you so much, Elliot. It's an honor, everybody. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you. Have a great day.
And you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.